Buenas, buenas, rapaziada. Muito bem-vindos a mais um vídeo aqui no nosso canal no YouTube. Nesse formato que vocês já estão ficando craques, já estão acostumados, já adoram, né? Formato de entrevista, mas essa, rapaziada, vai ser bastante especial, assim como todas as outras, mas tem uma particularidade que vai ser em inglês, exatamente. Não é a primeira entrevista internacional, porque a gente fez com a última com o Badio, né? Mas vai ser com o Rory Hamilton, jornalista escocês, atualmente na Warner, lá da Escócia. E claro, o ponto principal da entrevista, além da carreira dele também, vai ser um pouco, principalmente, da classificação da seleção escocesa, depois de muitos anos, desde 98 que a seleção escocesa não jogava uma Copa do Mundo. Então a gente vai contar toda a história, o que aconteceu em todos esses anos, por que a Escócia não jogou a Copa do Mundo, as expectativas para a atual seleção no próximo Mundial, um pouco de toda essa história, né? Mas, rapaziada, espero que curtem a entrevista. Vou deixar vocês aproveitar aí e a gente se vê no final do vídeo.
No, for us to start, man, before we go to the football, that wanted to ask you a little bit about your career, your career in journalism. And I was looking a bit about your profile and have been in some places. I wanted to ask you, when did you started? When did you know that you wanted to be a journalist? And in that case, a commentator. You always liked football. When did that passion come to you?
It's funny because I think I probably always had the passion to do something like this. It took me a long time to realize that it was actually a job that you
Okay.
could take.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think probably even like I remember running around the garden by myself, like commentating as I played football by myself. My two older sisters wouldn't play with me. But I mean, like then, like most little boys and girls, like I wanted to be a player.
A football player, yeah.
Wasn't good enough. Like was decent, but not that good. So that didn't happen, and sort of pursued other opportunities, other routes to a career. And to be honest, like I finished school. There was always a sort of big expectation to go into higher education. I did a year in Guyana as a teacher.
Oh, nice.
Full 12 months, 17 to 18 years old. And I think that was probably the sort of most transformational, most important year of my life. Like still to this day, like I learned so much from living out there. I think I did that particularly because I wasn't sure where my career was going to go.
Where to go.
I didn't know what I wanted to study. And I ended up doing sports science at Edinburgh University. And yeah, it was fine.
Decent.
Like I was clearly trying to attach myself to sport and professional sport, and seeing essentially like how close you can get to being a player without being one. And I'm sure that's what I was chasing. At the weekends, I ended up, I think from second year at university onwards, I started going into STV, which is Scottish television. And I got a Sunday job uploading manager videos onto their website. So I think I got paid, I think it was something like £40 each time. And my train fare was like 20. So it was a route in. And it kind of, that started to develop where I might want to get into broadcasting. So, from there, I was offered a full-time job and started going to live games, cutting highlights, cutting interviews, anything that was going into the broadcast, working on Champions League in the trucks. So, like doing the VT allocations, picking what replays are going out, all that kind of thing. And it's an amazing environment to get into, like really high pressured, but properly switches your brain on. And then so I was in that sort of TV production industry for a long time. I'm trying to think exactly, maybe 7 or 8 years solely. Then the company that I was working for, Setanta, went bust.
Really?
When I was at Setanta, I was, we would often wait for the match tapes to come back from all the games, and then we would cut highlights or any VTs that were needed for the next day. And it was all these commentators coming back from the games, and then I would have these tapes and working out what we do with them. And I was like, this is a job. Like there are guys out there who are going to games every week, and
getting paid.
I feel like I can probably do something with this. And it actually took Setanta going bust for me to chase that, because then you're out of that comfort zone of having a full-time job. So I had to go back up to live with my mum and dad in the Scottish Highlands. So, 3.5 hours away from Glasgow, where all the broadcasting really works for Scottish sport. So I then had to chase more. I had to push to get enough work to, cover, well, I didn't have bills because my mum and dad were paying, but cover my petrol and then it was just like to progress yourself.
Of course.
And that was when I started chasing a little bit of commentary, got into rugby first, and still do that now. And then football, it takes a lot of time. You have to get opportunities where you're not being paid very much, but it's all about that opportunity. And then slowly things start to build, and eventually turn into that being a possibility as a full-time job, as it is now. I don't do not very much production work on the side. It's pretty much all commentary that I do.
And what would you say has been like the best moment of your career until now? And I don't know how much time you have been, I think more than 10 years, something like that, no? Or even more, no?
Yeah, like as a full-time commentator, I think it's maybe 8 or 9 years. And so I think highlights in that sense would come from that period. Like it's funny because they change all the time as you progress. Like the early days, your highlight is your first live broadcast, which is an amazing feeling to do, and to like hear that term Q commentator or Q Rory, and that means like that's you for the next
you are there
minutes. You have control of this broadcast, and that's what I mean about it takes a long time for a broadcaster to put trust in someone like that, in that environment, because you can't just pull someone in and say, oh, they might be good. You don't know until they're fully tested, but it's really difficult to test someone on live broadcast. So,
anything can happen at all time.
So I would say, I've always been a big follower of the national team. So I think when first given the opportunity to commentate on Scotland, and then to commentate on Scotland at a major championships was incredible. I did England-Scotland at Wembley in Euro 2020, which was obviously played in 2021.
The pandemic one.
Which finished 0-0. We did pretty well in that game. So yeah, those are all highlights. The same goes for rugby, the national team. With the football of then, I think games that stick out for me would be we won 2-1 in Norway, which really helped us on our way to qualifying for the last European Championships in 2024. I still maintain that if the Euros were that summer in 2023, I think we could have done something, because we went on a year where we barely won a game between beating Georgia in the June after Norway and then getting to the Euros. I think we barely won a game. We might have beaten, I'm trying to think, I think we maybe had a bottom seed team at home that we won, and apart from that it was defeats and some quite heavy ones as well. So in 2023 we were a good team. By 2024 we'd kind of lost our aura a little bit.
Yeah, and now, of course, going to the football, man. Before we go a little bit in the national team, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the football in Scotland. Of course, we know that football in Scotland from a lot of years ago has been a big thing. But since what moment exactly, man, did football became started to be practicing football in Scotland? Sorry, I know that together with England, Scotland are one of the pioneers, but in what moment exactly did football there became like the sport, the main sport in the country.
I think from its invention, the first international football match was played in Glasgow
against England,
at the Partick Cricket Club between Scotland and England. And it was only because that was, they had lots of parks and things like that in Glasgow, but this was the only one because it was a cricket club that was surrounded by a fence. So they could then stop people from just walking up, and they could actually charge them for a ticket to watch. And it finished 0-0. And like our football teams, they've always been a big deal. You look back to like Hampden Park was the first super stadium in the world. It was getting 100,000 people officially, and probably some would argue 150,000 at some games for a long time. And I think a lot of it, in those very, very early days, so you're going back to the 1800s or the late 1800s, Queen's Park were they're one of the most important football clubs in the history of the game. They invented passing. There's all sorts of things that came out of Scotland, like dugouts where people sit because the weather's so bad, things like that. All sorts of inventions. They didn't used to pass the ball until Queen's Park started doing it. So, and then obviously they stayed amateur. Celtic and Rangers really, really took over. And I guess that rivalry, which goes beyond the football pitch, it's a societal thing as well. And that drives this interest and this love of football that in Scotland, it's not just in Glasgow, it's everywhere.
Yeah, Edinburgh.
Yes, I mean, Scotland has it has a great attitude to football, and it sometimes gets forgotten about because the standard isn't as good as what it is down in England. So it gets written off. But when you meet the people and you see the passion that there is, I think it's stronger in Scotland almost than anywhere else.
Okay.
As a collective country, it's the play. There's a stat that the league always runs out, is that by attendance, Scotland has the biggest attendance of football matches per head of population in the world.
Wow.
So that shows you that, it's not just at Celtic and Rangers. This is in Edinburgh. This is, I'm doing the Dundee Derby in a couple of weekends' time, and that's a fantastic fixture. It's not all about derbies, though. There's big clubs all over the place, and even little clubs, they become the centre of these towns. It annoys me slightly how Scottish football gets put down because it can't compete financially with the rest of
the rest
of Europe. Okay, our teams haven't performed well at all in Europe this season, but Celtic and Rangers they're massive, massive clubs. If there was to be a level financial playing field with clubs in England and Spain and France, Celtic and Rangers would be up there. They're as big as Barcelona, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Manchester United. They're that big.
And interesting what you were talking about England. Do you feel like there has been, and do you think there is like a rivalry between Scotland and England in football? No, in terms of I don't know, because both of them have been in football since the beginning. And if you feel there is, what do you say are like the difference between Scottish football and English football in terms of the way you live football, the way you play, and all those things? No?
Yeah, I mean, they're similar. They're very passionate in England about their football as well. And that rivalry does still exist. We do play each other occasionally. I would suspect that it's a bigger rivalry for Scotland than it is for England. Because we're the smaller nation. It's our chance. That's kind of like our World Cup final. Is when we play England. That's our big chance to give our supporters something to really cheer about. England will have their eyes set higher. They have ambitions of winning the World Cup in the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Scotland won't have that high an ambition. We would love to get out of our group. So England's rivalries have kind of developed in the last few decades, maybe with Argentina, with Germany, whereas Scotland still in all sports, it doesn't matter what it is, water polo, cross country, football, rugby, the biggest game is Scotland against England, and when you win that, we beat them at rugby quite regularly now. We beat them just last month, and that's it's not the pinnacle for rugby because we have a bit of a stronger team, so we have a good chance there. But it's special, like it's fun, and to be honest, I think that the maybe less so the modern fan, but I would say maybe the older guard of England fans would see that as well. They would recognise the rivalry between Scotland and England because they will have come from an era when they remembered that Scotland were better than England.
Okay,
there were times when we had incredible players, and we used to play them every year in the home internationals. That doesn't happen anymore. But we could do pretty well with some of the teams. Like there's legendary players of Kenny Dalglish and guys like that who were
Graham Souness.
Who they would be good enough to get in any team.
And exactly talking about these players, man, I would like to ask you a little bit because Scotland has played a lot of World Cups before this one in the 2026, no? But I would like to ask you for on what you know. Why do you think, man, Scotland in World Cups like have never succeeded? Because I was seeing that you never went out of a group. No, I think the best was ninth place in the 74 World Cup, if I'm not wrong, no? So I would like to ask you that, having so many good players, Dalglish, Souness, Denis Law, why do you think Scotland in World Cups like have never really performed in the biggest stage? No?
It's a good question. We've definitely underperformed, in those teams and those players that you mentioned. If you go back to, I would say from the late 60s, probably all the way through the 70s or early 80s, then we had some very good teams that there were high expectations for. I think there was one. It used to be that whoever won the home nations championship would be the representatives for Great Britain and Northern Ireland at the World Cups, and Scotland would win that sometimes, and they would go. And when you think back to some of the club teams that we had, in '66, I know this is a long
time. That's okay.
But in '66, we had Celtic won the European Cup with all players that came from within 5 miles of Celtic Stadium. You look at the squads, I think particularly in the late 70s, 74, 78, 82, 86, I think really those four teams, they should have done better. In 1978, we had a manager called Ali MacLeod. He was a big character and didn't want to play up to this Scottish underdog tag. He wanted to build us up as what we were, and he was asked, "What do you plan to do after the World Cup in Argentina?" And he said, "Retain it." So that was the sort of belief going into 78. And I mean, we were pretty unlucky, but you still you can't keep getting unlucky. At some point you have to
perform,
to do it, and we haven't. So I don't know what that comes down to. Particularly during those times, we were regular qualifiers.
Okay.
From 1990 onwards, we had 98, and then nothing until this summer. So there haven't been enough opportunities to be able to do it. So I don't know what it comes down to, and I'm sure we'll get on to it. What I really like about this team, and while they haven't performed at European Championships, the two that Steve Clarke's qualified them for, is that I think that, I don't know if you know this phrase, is glorious failure. And this is
I think I have heard it.
It's a tag that has been with Scotland as a nation, as a sporting nation, as
a nation as a whole. No? I think I have heard
and
it.
People kind of use it as this excuse that it's something built into our psyche that we'll get so close, but then it's Scotland, so we'll mess it up in the end. I've always hated it. It's a term I would never use, even in like a joking sense, because it just sets such a bad mindset. Be it in terms of
quite negative,
sport or politics. It's like we're this downtrodden. We're always set to fail. It's something that's predetermined, and therefore you can almost, when you do fail, then you just it was just written in the stars for us anyway. And I think Steve Clarke's been really keen to get that out of players' heads, to build a much more positive outlook that they have a belief that they can do it, and just by qualifying for tournaments, they've proven that. So the next step then is
to compete,
to get out of a group.
Okay, and just before we go to the current national team, I just would like to ask you, because I've probably around this time you have followed the national team more. Between '98, it was the last time Scotland played in the World Cup, and now 2026. What do you say what has changed, man, in compared to those years of Dalglish and company, so that Scotland haven't played the World Cup? And then if you also can connect to the current national team and Steve Clarke role, and how now that the team has started to come better, and now let's see if we'll do well in the World Cup, but slowly but surely coming back to what it should be,
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think probably what is obvious, and it's not a factor that that should completely determine it, but the game has become so much more global in that time, I think. And I think Scotland has been left behind financially, which makes it harder to compete with development of players. Now, post Brexit, what we're seeing is English clubs who have got infinite wealth in comparison to Scottish clubs. They can't now bring in a lot of European youngsters, so they look to the Scottish academies, and they might have to pay a development fee of £500,000 or something like that, but to them that's nothing. The Scottish clubs, they go, well, that's a player that he might be good, but we'd rather have 500,000. But I don't think enough Scottish kids are getting enough opportunities. And a lot of them then, of course, go to English academies and get excellent facilities, but then it's so hard to break through as well. I don't think I fully answered the question why we haven't. It's difficult.
It's difficult.
A whole other route. It's probably just one very small subplot. I don't know why we haven't, because we've had teams and players, groups of players, when I look back on it, that are good enough. But for whatever reason, they haven't had the big results that are required to get. I think probably I'll give you a main one. I think that when we've had really good players, probably the best players over the last 20 years, have all been goalkeepers, defenders. Midfielders, but not creative midfielders. Most of the time,
not attacking players. No?
When the way that the difference makers in games are those up at the other end of the pitch. So, if a very good example is Wales with Gareth Bale. So Wales have a smaller population than Scotland, and that Welsh team is good, but if you took Gareth Bale out of it, I don't think they go anywhere close to what they did. And it was really apparent in the games that we played against Wales. We had a qualifying group with Belgium and Wales, and I'm sure we lost home and away, I think, to Wales. And Gareth Bale was he was the difference maker, because he can come up with those moments, clutch moments in games that turn you from 1 point into 3 or no points into 3. Because I think we were 1 up with maybe 10 minutes to go in Cardiff, and we just haven't had that type of a player, of a consistent goal scorer. I mean, I think it's maybe unfair to say, our best were all defenders and midfielders. We did have James McFadden was superb. Kenny Miller was a decent goal scorer for Scotland, but not consistent goal scorers. And that's, a world-class player. Look at the moment, our for a while, our very best 2 players were Andy Robertson and Kieran Tierney. We've always had good goalkeepers.
Yep.
For this entire time, we've had really good goalkeepers. But really, that top end of the pitch, whenever we would come up against another team, I remember us playing North Macedonia. I think they were still Macedonia at the time, and they had Goran Pandev up front, and we lost. And when I looked at the teams beforehand, I didn't know anyone other than Pandev. I think he was playing with Inter at the time. And I looked at that and I went, he's going to score, we're going to lose. And if you just put him in our team, we're better everywhere else on the pitch, but they've got that number 9 through the middle who will hurt us. And we don't have that.
But would you say that now in the current team their player? Would you say that McTominay would be like your most differential player in that sense, or would you still like consider him like more of a really good player, but maybe not this kind of player, like to get a ball in the center of the pitch and score like a banger,
Scott McTominay he's our main man. He will be the one that opposition will look to try and stop. But again, he's not a centre forward. He's not a huge goal scorer. So it's still, I would still say that that's an area. The number 9 is the area that if we could just get somebody a little bit more clinical in front of goal, that would make all the difference and take some of that pressure off McGinn and McTominay.
Yeah, like the midfield players. Okay, and I would like you to talk to me a little bit about the campaign that Scotland had until the qualification. I know that there was some matches that were a little bit rough, and eventually the game against Denmark in the 4-2, the bicycle goal from McTominay. But how was the campaign? When started the qualification? Did you have the feeling that Scotland would get the job done? And then if you talk me a little bit about the feeling in the 4-2, how the country lived and what meant to Scotland to be in the World Cup after '98.
I don't like the qualification process.
Yeah, he's a little bit.
A 4-team group played over a 2-month period, to me, is not a fair reflection on a team's ability over what is essentially a 4-year process to get to a World Cup. And then you just say, well, between September, October, and November, we'll play 6 games and we'll find out who the best of 4 teams. To me, I think it's a really weak setup for getting the best team. However, it has benefited us, and therefore, when we came into that qualifying group, you look at it, and okay, you probably start to discount if you want to qualify, you discount Belarus straight away because you should win home and away against Belarus. And then we looked at it and we said, well, Denmark, pretty good, Greece, decent, Scotland, decent. You've got a 3-way fight. And you know that those 3 are all going to take points off each other at some stage. Yeah. So when you look at it that way, it gives you a really, really good chance. Once you start to get a result that is better than what the opposition would want. So we started in Copenhagen against Denmark and we drew 0-0. So already that's Denmark 2 points lower than they thought they would be. So we've already taken 2 points from them. We've gained 1. And then you're saying, well, all we need to do is beat them in November in the final game. And that should have us above them. So it really starts to work on those head-to-heads much more than, say, in a 6 or 7 team group like it used to be. Then we won away to Belarus. It was played in Hungary. We were okay. We weren't great, given that Belarus had just lost 5-1 to Greece.
Yeah.
So they weren't looking in a great shape. So the next game, we were home to Greece, and we were awful. We rightly went 1-0 down, but Greece could have had that game wrapped up. They scored around about an hour, and then I think we equalized like straight away, and then scored twice in the last 10 minutes. They were robbed. Like, we did not deserve to win that game at all. So, that's one that gets away from them. Then we beat Belarus at home. We didn't play well. I think McTominay made it 2-0 late on, and then they scored late. But we weren't performing the way that we should. So then it all comes down to this last game, which, if you'd offered me that at the start of the campaign to say, we'll go into match day 6, beat Denmark, and you qualify, then I think anyone in Scotland would take that, because Denmark are a good team, better team than us, I would say, a better qualification record for sure. Yeah. But that gives you a chance at Hampden Park. It was absolutely buzzing. And because, the fear was that I think it was on the Saturday night, the fear was that it was gone, that we'd lost to Greece. Denmark were going to win, and you're like, the moment's gone. But then it all starts to breathe into that belief that all it needs is one performance, a little bit of luck. And again, that game with Denmark, it was pretty even. I would say they were probably slightly the better team. They did get a red card, which was quite costly. And I'm sure you've seen the pictures of that game. I mean, McTominay.
The goal is outrageous.
It's absolutely sensitive. I mean, all the quality of all the goals. Shankland's is a bit of a tap-in. I'm just looking at it now. That came 12 minutes from time. I thought it was earlier than that. They're down to 10 men. Dorgu equalizes with like 10 minutes to go, and you're just thinking, that's it. We're gonna blow it. That would be an example of glorious failure.
Yeah.
But this team, as I've said, a little bit different. Yeah. But I think the Kieran Tierney one, I think in the past that would have rolled out to him perfectly, or any other player, and they'd have gone, oh no, I'll pass it wide and we'll swing it across. But he thinks, no, this is the chance in stoppage time to take us to the World Cup. Hits it perfectly, and scores. And I so appreciate that he didn't take the easy way out and just give a pass.
Yeah.
He's gone, no,
went for it.
The percentage play is hit the shot, and he did. And we're all still celebrating when Kenny McLean gets the ball and goes upfield, and there's people just grabbing each other and diving over each other. It's for all the games that I've been to in my life, that's the best feeling I've had at a football match.
And do you think that this game specifically, because for all that has happened, you are telling me, has like changed a little bit the perspective around the team, even if the campaign hasn't been that good, but this game, the goals, like the feeling, everything. Do you think that it has changed a little bit the perspective on not only Scottish fans but the whole world as a whole for around the team? No.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that was the night that Scotland went viral and global with all it was everywhere. Like, we were the sort of attention of world football that day. And I think you're right. I think that it shows that when it matters, we can turn up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a kind of hobble over the line and just get there, or not, as the case was so often, or like campaigns that were finished after the opening 2 games. So to come down to a final match day and to produce that, I think that does start to turn the belief. It was amazing when you get a country that can be so divided in its football and its club football, to be so united and celebrating. Glasgow was just it was an amazing place to be that night.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think that is like the main difference from the country football, the national team football from the club football. I think like the whole country gets connected, gets like into it. At the end of the day, in the club, you can be like a Scottish Celtic fan, a Rangers fan, but when it's about Scotland, the thing changes, no? I would like to ask you now, man, a little bit about Scott Clark. No, his role in the team, and since he has been in charge of the Scottish national team, how much has changed, and also a little bit what can we expect about Scotland in the World Cup in terms of the way you play, in terms of the more football thing. No?
He came from Kilmarnock. He'd done a lot of coaching and managing in England at big clubs, at Newcastle, at Chelsea, at Liverpool, and he'd been a coach under the biggest names, under Mourinho, under Dalglish, I think, at Liverpool.
Liverpool.
Yeah. I remember seeing the names of the managers at the time when he was trusted as a first team coach. They clearly saw something in him, and when he had a couple of teams down in England as well, and then came up to Scotland and was Kilmarnock manager, and he did really well with them. That's a sort of a relatively small team. And he got them into Europe. He was finishing, I think they may have even finished third one season. He did consistently very, very well with them, and particularly thrived when it came to playing against Celtic and Rangers. So he would build up the players for those games to give them belief that they could take to the field against a team that's maybe got 40, 50 times the budget, to make them believe that they deserve to be on the same pitch and they could be equals as them. And I think that's how he really got them to thrive in those moments. It's like it's an underdog mentality.
Yeah.
And he did brilliantly with them. He was all the way my choice for Scotland manager, because I think you can't go out and spend your way to success as you can in club football. You have to make do with what you have and to improve players beyond their current capabilities. And I think he managed to do that with Kilmarnock, and he's definitely done that with Scotland. As the team have got better, he's, I think, had to adapt his tactics. Okay. Because that only gets you so far. At certain times, like when we struggle is when we're favourites.
Yeah.
When like the Belarus game at home, we were so poor because we're not so used to dominating the ball. Yeah, so I think our style of play has developed. See, beyond those Euros, there was a lot of criticism about how they played. The lack of ambition, just hoping that something might happen rather than making something happen. And we then went into the Nations League campaign when we had Croatia, Portugal, and someone else. I can't remember who the other team was, but we were in League A. So like really good standards of opposition. And we actually became a much more attacking team with the emergence of Ben Doak, who wasn't getting a look in at Liverpool. He was a young guy. He plays the same position as Mo Salah, so he's not
difficult to play.
You have to be world class to get game time, and he's 18 or was 19 years of age. But what that gave Scotland was this ability to play with width, because we didn't have wingers up until then. Everything was very, very compacted in the middle of the pitch, and then you would try and get Andy Robertson down one side and Aaron Hickey down the other. Sometimes with Kieran Tierney underlapping Andy Robertson from a third centre back. But it's not ideal. Most teams will play with
natural winger.
Yeah, and so Ben Doak gave us that. We still don't have the balance on the left-hand side.
Okay.
Which was why they were, I think, really keen to get Harvey Barnes from Newcastle to play. But
for Scotland,
he's English. He wants to play for England, so
that's normal.
I wish him all the best. But so I think that now we have not as many options as most squads, but that has given us a different option. Is that Ben Doak can play out wide as a proper winger. We talk about them in Scotland. Chalk on your boots.
Yeah,
like
the 1v1 specialist. Yeah,
yes, getting white paint on your boots.
Yeah,
that's the type of winger that he is, and he doesn't score very many, but he gives us a different outlet.
No, I would ask you that. No, you have talked about him, but who are the players like apart from like McTominay, Robertson, like the most underrated players in the Scottish national team right now? Like that you feel that maybe in the World Cup or going to the future, like will shine, and that we have to like to give a look. For example, Scotland will play against Brazil in the World Cup in the group. No, so is there like another player that you think, oh, this one maybe could be like a hidden gem in the team? No,
there's a guy that I think he has maybe 30 or 40 caps already, so he's not a hidden gem. I think maybe this one might come a little bit soon for Lennon Miller.
Okay.
Who's playing in Italy. He just moved there from Motherwell. And the same with Kieran Bowie, who's just gone to Hellas Verona.
Okay.
So Lennon Miller's at Udinese, Kieran Bowie's at Hellas Verona. And, they're sort of the next generation who are in and around this squad as well. So Lennon Miller is probably a little bit more in the mold of Scott McTominay, but he's only 19, so he doesn't have that physical presence yet. But he's really nice, tidy player. And Kieran Bowie, I hope he's a little bit older. Maybe he's about 22, 23, I think. But he has a presence. He's a big, strong boy. He's got a confidence. I would like to see him. He's not got many caps, but I would like to see him. I think in the future, I think he will be our centre forward, and I hope that one that can get you 5-6 goals in qualifying, because out with McTominay and McGinn, we haven't had that for a long time.
Okay, we're getting close to the end, man. But I would just like to see a little bit of like your real expectations with Scotland. Of course, the group with Morocco, Brazil, and Haiti, is like. It's a group that, well, maybe in the second place could be your target, no. But I would like to hear, what you think about the opponents, and like the real chance that you think Scotland has to finally this time get out of the World Cup group.
Yeah, so we start in Boston or Foxborough with Haiti, which. It's probably the game that gives me the most fear, because it's the game that we should win. And as I've discussed with you before, that's not when we
not really good
Scotland at our
best.
Yeah. So there's pressure on that game. Morocco are a really good football team. I thought that they were probably the best story of the last World Cup.
2022. Yeah.
They were sensational. And I think that's probably the game that is our hardest.
Okay.
I think that they play a more of a European style of football. I think, and then I mean, I mean Brazil is Brazil, and in Miami, I mean what a time that'll be for the fans. I just I've got my tickets for the 2 games in Boston. It was too expensive to add on Miami, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to that one, unfortunately. But it'll be a great occasion, and the nature of how qualification works, like we should be in with a chance, even if it is going to that last game needing to win to get out the group. Then there should be something on that game. So that's it's so exciting to be going to a World Cup, and like said this like so many times to my friends, like when it happens for us, you go, oh, this is what it's like to be another nation all the time. Like say England breeze through qualifying every single time. They like barely lose a goal and win every game.
Don't breathe it.
Qualification for us is exciting.
Yeah.
Because it's edge of the seat. On our day, we do have some really good players. We don't have the depth of squad, but from a 1 to 11, I'd say from a squad point of view, there's a brilliant spirit, a really good mentality that's really been created by Steve Clarke.
Okay.
It's like a club team, as you said with Morocco. I think quite similar with Scotland. They love turning up. It used to be in the past that if Scotland were playing, but there was a Celtic Rangers game the next week, then 3, 4, 5 players would pull out the squad because there's pressure from their clubs, and it's not like that anymore. So yeah,
let's see what happens. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Like nobody knows with Scotland. It could be anything, but I also think that because we make a big thing about getting out of the group, because even though it's actually great teams from the past, in the lead up to 78, Scotland were being talked about as potential winners. Like that's how, and then they still got knocked out in the group stage. But I think with this team, yes, that will be a target, is to get out of the group, but it will be an initial target. Like it's not as if that they will, if they do get out of the group, then they'll go, all right, well, that's job done, wonderful. They will then still see it as an opportunity to go and do something really special.
Então é isso aí, rapaziada. Espero que vocês tenham gostado da entrevista com o Rory, uma entrevista bastante estendida, bastante aprofundada assim, em todos os temas que a gente tocou na Escócia, né? Então eu acho que com certeza foi uma entrevista com muito conteúdo, muita coisa interessante. Espero que vocês tenham gostado, né? Se sim, deixa aquele like, se inscreve se é novo no canal, muito bem-vindo, evidentemente, e compartilhar aquele esquema que vocês conhecem muito bem. E no próximo vídeo a gente se vê, né? Se Deus quiser, com certeza. Rapaziada, grande abraço, muito obrigado, hein? A gente se vê em breve.